My name is Brendan. I'd experienced depression from quite a young age, from my teens, and had managed and coped with that reasonably well. But over the last few years, I started experiencing anxiety along with it, and actually found that anxiety quite paralysing in actually trying to do things with myself in life. It actually resulted in me taking medication, which, as I say, having dealt with depression for a long time and not done that, that was quite a hard thing to deal with and to accept. One of the problems I found with the medication was that whilst it dampened down the anxiety, it had also the effect of damping down the ability to do things and make changes and absorb things like that in life. So I desperately wanted to make some changes like that, and having spent a year or so trying to do things and hitting brick walls, I finally came across Liane. The main thing I wanted to achieve was some changes, some very quite fundamental changes in how I was feeling and in the choices I was making in life. So just having a little bit of belief in yourself to go along with some of these things. And just that constant kind of sense of progress, that feeling of progress. I suppose I'm 50, I've got 2 kids, I've got the job, and everything closes in on you, and it's you stop seeing yourself as an individual and that opportunity to progress yourself. A little bit of that's coming back. In fact, a lot of that's coming back, to be honest. I found Liane so empathetic when it was appropriate to be, when she could be, sympathetic at other times. It just became a little bit of a sanctuary for a while to come along to here. So they were some of the short-term benefits, and it's like it just gave you a holding place to be and to let some ideas kind of work through. So that was probably the main short-term benefit. Just dealing better on a day-to-day basis at a very fundamental level. Well, very quickly from the sessions, the initial sessions I had with her, it just felt very comfortable, very easy to talk with her. And it's almost immediately felt the sense that there was somebody that could help me make changes. And it wasn't a case that I felt that Liane could make the changes for me. It was very much a case of it was me making the changes and Liane helping with that. For me, one of the things that really worked was the stories that Liane would tell, and the way she explained why she was telling them. For me, that allowed a way of abstracting a problem and letting you then work it through yourself. So you could take something on board that was very simple in its story and then take it on board. And over the next week or two, let that work. So that the stories, the way of just making it all very gentle, the whole process. I think that for me, that really, really worked. A year and a half on from when I first started seeing Liane, I'm no longer taking medication. The depression is largely under control. The anxiety has largely gone until I do things like this. Other changes that I wanted to do. A good example is I've attempted to play guitar since my teens, and for the last 30 years I've been threatening to get lessons. Well, finally last year I did. And it's things like that that are hard to quantify exactly where and why it's happened, but I do think that this process of working through some of these problems with Liane has very definitely contributed to that. The longer term benefits, as I say, started to come about with making those changes. I mentioned the guitar there, that's one thing. I tried to do some exercise last year and discovered that in my relaxed years of not doing any exercise, I seem to have developed asthma, which made it very challenging to do that. But over the last year, I've ended up doing some of these Tough Mudder type things where I've kind of finally managed to get on top of some of these things. I struggled a little with that because it's not cheap, and I probably saw Liane for maybe 6 months on a reasonably regular basis, but it always felt it was value to me, even though it was expensive, and I had to make those judgments. I can certainly say that I've spent an awful lot more money on things that are being significantly less value for me, including things that I was trying to do to make things better for me. So it's very hard to make that, because that outlay that you're making on a weekly or fortnightly basis, or whatever it happens to be, is significant. But for me, I certainly don't regret that in any way. For me, the advice I would give people is if you're trying to make changes and those changes aren't happening for you, that I think the hypnotherapy, and in particular Liane's way of delivering that, will help you make the changes. As I say, she's not going to make the changes for you. It's a little bit like having somebody holding your hand and making that feel okay. That's, I think, the important bit. I do find myself regularly recommending people to come along and try coming to see you.